Get some more on that, and also BHP's production numbers, quarterly production numbers out just half an hour or so ago. We're joined now by Cameron Peacock from IG Markets in Melbourne. Cameron, great to see you there. Just firstly, got to ask you about the testimony, what you gleaned from it, because it certainly had a very seesawing effect on markets overnight.
Yeah, good morning, Bridie. It did. I think, Bernanke, kept the QE3 dream alive for many in the market. It was a fairly choppy session. Stocks were initially lower when he was giving his prepared testimony before the Senate Banking Committee. He basically, didn't outline any specific plans to boost growth. And, we saw the stock market sell off. We saw the US dollar push a little bit higher, gold fall a little bit. But it was during his questions and answer time that, he really voiced his concerns over the US economy and the slowing in the recovery. He said that inflation wasn't a problem and wouldn't be a hindrance to further stimulus, and he did repeat that line that the Fed stood willing and able to act with further balance sheet expansion if required, particularly if the labour market continued to soften. And it was, once some of these comments started to come through later in his speech, that the market started to reverse course, and we saw equities pushing higher. I think the Dow Jones up 0.6%, the S&P up 0.7%. We saw gold reversing some of its losses. We saw the US dollar start to weaken. So, the QE dream is certainly still alive.
Just looking too at the expectations surrounding BHP's production numbers, what did you make of the results there? Iron ore looked pretty good, and I suppose compared to what we saw from Rio.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I've only cast my eye very briefly over the BHP production report. They did say it was a very solid operating performance in a challenging environment. They noted that they had production records over 10 of their operations. The iron ore division now, producing at an annualised capacity of about 179 million tonnes. It was up 15% from a year ago, the previous quarter, and also up 8% on the March quarter. We also saw, probably better than expected results, or beats, on the previous quarter across their energy coal, across copper, and a fairly flat performance across petroleum. But all in all, they look like they're up on the corresponding period last year, and have advanced their production from the previous quarter. So I think the market's going to be relatively happy with this result. Obviously, yesterday we had the Rio result out with about an hour left to trade. That result, depending on who you listen to, may be slightly disappointing. I read an article today from the West Australian and another one from the Age, and you could have sworn you were reading two different, reports about two different production results. The result was relatively flat for Rio, but they did downgrade their production guidance full year across copper, hard coking coal, and thermal coal, and that saw the wind taken out of Rio's sales late in the day. I think they were trading up about 0.6% prior to that result coming out, and then finished the day down about 1.6%. So I think the market really focused on those, end of year production downgrades as opposed to what the particular quarter did.
I've got to ask you about what you expect then at the Open in just under an hour. We've got the Aussie holding at best levels since early May at the moment against the greenback. What do you think? I mean, are we going to see some good gains at the Open maybe?
Look, we're calling the market to open a little bit higher, maybe about 8 points or 0.2%. I think we're currently calling it up around that 41.50 level. I think gains are going to be fairly marginal compared to what we saw in US markets overnight, largely because we had that unexpected bounce yesterday. I mean, we were up about 1.2% at one stage yesterday. Asian markets were strong, and we were all sort of scratching our heads going, why are we so strong today? I mean, the previous session we had the US down maybe 0.2, 0.3%. We had, flat to lower leads at best. We were expecting a fairly mundane session, and then all of a sudden in the afternoon we were up 1.2%, with very little reason to move higher. Now, we would have, held those gains had it not been for Rio Tinto's, last hour drift, which brought us down to a gain of about 0.9% instead of about 1.2%. So, we had our gains yesterday. I think obviously we had a strong session in the US last night. We are expecting to be up fractionally today. I think we'll trade in a fairly tight range, but I certainly wouldn't be expecting that gains of the same magnitude as what we saw yesterday.
Great to get your thoughts, Cameron. Thanks so much for that.
Thanks, Brian.
More arrests are expected in